G'day there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. Let's go. I fell in love with my neighbor, and then I babysat his kids. Now I'm questioning my feelings. So I'm a 34-year-old woman, and 7 months ago I had a messy breakup with my long-term boyfriend. So I moved in with my best friend and her husband in a house that we are all renting together. It was then that I met my neighbor, who I will call Kay. He helped us move our stuff into the house, and I was instantly smitten. We live in the suburbs of a major city, so we both ended up taking the train into work at the same time each day. I knew Kay had a wife and kids very early on. He talked about them often and had pictures of them on his lock screen, social media, etc. However, initially it started out as a very innocent, silly crush. He's handsome and funny and sweet. The first time we rode the train, he asked me about my job and seemed genuinely interested in what I was saying, which is something my ex never did and is something we fought over a lot. He's always doing things for his kids, like bringing home treats and stuff for them and staying on the phone with his oldest daughter the entire ride to work because she needed a pep talk before a school presentation. It was just so easy to imagine how lovely and attentive Kay would be with me because he's like that with everyone else. Kay has never said or done anything to imply that he has feelings for me yet, but we are genuinely friends by now because we talk on the train, which is about a 20-minute ride almost every weekday. I have never had trouble getting the attention of men, and with this basis we have already, I know that we could easily become something more. I also learned shortly after I developed feelings for him that his wife is someone that I went to school with, and I was surprised because they are polar opposites. He is funny, she is dry. He is exciting, she is cautious. He is a little dumb, and she is very smart intellectually. Looks-wise, this feels mean, but yikes. I just don't think that their personalities fit very well together at all, and I can easily see Kay getting stuck in a relationship because he's just so nice. The issue is that yesterday evening, Kay knocked on my door and asked if I could watch his kids for a bit. This was of course no trouble, and I said yes right away. He told me that his wife had gotten into a car accident while away on a business trip, and because she is pregnant, he was super worried and had booked the next flight out to go see her. They don't have any family in the state currently, so he asked me to keep an eye on them for a few hours, while a family friend drove several hours to watch them at night. Now is where the issue came in. These kids were an absolute nightmare. There were 3 girls, and the oldest was your typical bratty preteen multiplied by 1,000. She was rude and didn't respect my authority at all, arguing with me about everything from dinner and who had to clean up to what movies she was allowed to watch. I even heard her call me a cow underneath her breath a couple of times. The middle child was rowdy, and she constantly wanted to play loud, messy games, even when I told her no. The youngest was mostly sweet and quiet on her own, but she joined in with whatever drama the middle wanted to create. It culminated in me agreeing to play hide and seek with the younger 2 and ended up getting locked out of the house. When I went back and tried to convince the oldest to let me in through the back screen door, she pretended that she couldn't hear me and put her headphones on. Thankfully, the family friend arrived a few minutes later and let me in, and then I went home. This makes me sad because, before now, I would often dream about being a stepmom to Kay's kids one day because of how highly he would talk about them. Now I want nothing to do with them. But at the same time, this is further proof that Kay and his wife are not happy because children from a happy home do not behave like this. I just want to have a relationship with Kay, but I do not know if it's possible because his kids and I would not get along, and this is even before a potential divorce where their mother could easily get them to hate me. I really love Kay, and I know that we could have a beautiful relationship if I pursued this, but this has really shaken me. I just wish that I had someone to talk to about this, but everyone in my life would judge me. In the comments, honestly, it doesn't sound like you love him. You romanticize him and have this fantasy life in your head. In your head, you act like he would drop his wife and just run away with you. You justify this belief by saying his children are wild, so it must be an unhappy home. Meanwhile, you completely ignore the fact that his wife is pregnant, and he dropped everything to go to her. You say the kids do not respect your authority. It sounds like they barely know you, and suddenly you're in charge. You're not their mother and will never be their mother. You think you'll have a beautiful relationship with Kay if you pursued him? No, you wouldn't. He has a family that he clearly loves. Just because he's nice to you doesn't mean that he wants you. I encourage you to discuss this with a professional because this isn't healthy. And OP responds, "How do you know whether or not I love him? Are you inside my head? You can love someone before being in a relationship with them, and just like I don't know for sure that he loves me, you don't know that he doesn't. You never know until you cross that bridge. I know he wouldn't just drop everything and run away with me. There would be months and even years of divorce court, custody arrangements, etc. if he decided to leave his wife. And before the comments come in, yes, I know there's no guarantee that he'll do that. But Kay is a good, honest man. If anything were to happen between us, he would absolutely leave his wife because it wouldn't be fair for either of us, and he told me that he believes very strongly in fairness. That's why I'm asking. I know this could be a messy situation if anything happened. I just want to know if this kid's being difficult will make things worse if it does happen. I want to know if the potential pros outweigh the potential cons." You sound legitimately delusional, like Lifetime movie of the week type stuff. Please leave this family alone and seek therapy. Girl, you don't love him because if you did, you wouldn't be trying to bust up his family. You said it yourself. He's done nothing to indicate interest in you as more than a standard other human being. You're in his house, fantasizing about being a homewrecker. That is not love. OP retorts, "I'm not fantasizing about being a homewrecker because I would still love him regardless of if he was in a relationship or not." Jesus. You've got to separate your feelings from your actions. Fine, you will still love him regardless. That doesn't make you a butthole. But if you make a move on him and destroy his marriage and his loving family, then you'll be a butthole. I unexpectedly fell hard for someone once, and I ended up breaking off all contact because, while I valued the friendship, my feelings for him had made it impossible for things to be normal. Haven't spoken to him in years, but I think of him now and again. I hope that he's happy with his wife and kids because you want that for people you care for. He is married, and you are fantasizing about replacing his wife. That is, by definition, fantasizing about being a homewrecker. You are lying to yourself to justify it. You can't love him regardless because he is married. He has a family who he loves. He has a wife who he loves. People do not hop on flights and call family friends to watch their children to be with someone they do not love. Having to be with the kids is a completely logical reason to stay home. He didn't because he loves her. You can't love a version of him without that because that is a fantasy version of him. It's not romantic to love someone for who you think they could be. It sounds like you have a limerence problem. You've picked someone unobtainable to focus all your romantic feelings on. At 34, you should understand that it's impossible to be in love with someone without actually interacting with them in a romantic relationship. And now on to the update, which is just a transcript of a screenshot that OP took that reads, "K, blank and the girls are okay. Thank you for watching the girls." And OP replies, "Of course, anytime, smiley face. Let me know if there is anything else I can do." K gives a thumbs up emoji. And then they send a link to the original post and ask, "Is this you? Because if it is, we need to talk. I promise you that I have absolutely no interest in leaving my family for you. Sorry if I ever gave you the wrong idea, but I don't see you as anything more than a neighbor. I don't think we should be friends anymore." And OP says, "Wait, can I call you?" And that's it. That's the update. In the comments, "That commute the next morning must have been rough. Someone's gonna start cycling to work. It better be OP, cause she ain't worth anybody adjusting their routines, even for healthier alternatives." Quote, "But Kay is a good man. If anything were to happen between us, he would absolutely leave his wife." A good, honest man would not cheat on his wife, and especially while pregnant. She's really tying herself into knots, making this about two lovers, cruelly held apart by fate, rather than a self-obsessed woman deciding she's the main character. Yes, That stuck out to me in particular. He's a good, honest man, so when he cheats on his pregnant wife with me, he'll break her heart and destroy their family so we can be together like a good man would. What? She was, in my opinion, honestly leaning more towards getting him drunk or drugged for a sex tryst, where he would obviously have to leave his wife because he cheated scenario, not realizing that a guy like him would very clearly not engage with her further, ipso facto, in order to either save his marriage and family, or just because of disgust. She's daydreaming about being stepmom to this guy's kids because he, checks notes, converses with her during their commute? I mean, once a man impugns a lady's honor by having a conversation, he's duty-bound to make an honest woman of her. Sarcasm, by the way. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a married man in possession of a Metro card must be in want of an affair partner. That's what's so sad. Her bar is so low, and she doesn't even realize it. I'm very glad that he made it clear that it ain't gonna happen, particularly when she said he's a little dumb. How charming! Our next post is titled, My 36 male family wants to reconcile with me after disowning me for becoming an addict years ago. So I was a pretty terrible addict between the ages of 16 and 22. I caused my family a great deal of pain and embarrassment during those years. I stole from them, frequently had episodes, and soiled their reputation. 2 failed rehab attempts. The final straw was when I accidentally broke my younger brother's nose in an intoxicated state when I was 21. They kicked me out and barred me from further contact. A year later, I was hospitalized after a dealer stabbed me. While I laid in bed for hours, I thought about all that I had done wrong and vowed that I would quit. I thought I would collapse in the first month, but I've managed 14 years so far. I took a GED and took a low-wage job so I could pay back the money that I stole. I sent the money in envelopes along with an apology and an address and phone number. No response. I tried again when I was 24, thinking enough time had passed. That time, they responded outright by writing that they were glad that I had paid them back, but that they didn't love me anymore, that their lives were better without me regardless of what I did, and in order that I never contact again. I was shocked. It stung badly, and I even thought of relapse out of spite, but my support group convinced me that I need to accept they were simply gone. I did community college for 2 years, transferred to a university, and I now work at my sober companion's landscaping business. I met my significant other when I was 31 and were engaged and expecting a boy in January. My significant other convinced me a year ago that I should launch a Facebook page despite my original distaste for social media. I was surprised when my brother sent me a friend request a few weeks ago. Confused, I neither accepted or refused. He then sent me a message saying he had forgiven me about his nose and hoped that we would reconnect. Cousins and my sister sent similar messages shortly after. Today, I got a letter from my parents saying they had been too harsh in our last contact and inviting me for a dinner on Sunday. I shared this with my significant other, and she begged me that I should at least hear them out. She believes in second chances, but I gave them 2 chances already, and they scorned me. Their motive is somewhat unclear. They can't know about significant other or my unborn son because my posts on them are private. They also apparently decided together I should be forgiven, but whatever the case, I feel they waited way too long for reconciliation. Is my significant other right, or should I ignore them? In the comments, people who you have wronged get to set the time it takes for forgiveness. I know it sucks and is crappy that your own parents turned their back on you, but they had lots of their own emotions to work through, many of which included personal blame on themselves for thinking they were terrible parents. You have a choice. You can accept that this was their time to reconcile their emotions and everyone can get on with it, or you can stew in your own emotions and extend this further. There is no rush to this decision, so perhaps you should take some time to think about it. It's come out of the blue, and it's a major event in your life. Don't do anything you were not 100% comfortable with. Don't discount the hurt and pain you felt when they rejected you those 2 times. Things like that can't just be forgotten. I think it's unlikely that any reconciliation is going to be smooth sailing. There will be a lot of hurt on both sides. Them for the things you did while an addict, and you for their rejection. It will possibly dredge up a lot of feelings of guilt, shame, and anger. I don't think just turning up to dinner is the best way to go about it. If you eventually decide to give it a go, I think it might be best to take it slowly, step by step, and possibly with the help of a therapist, either to counsel you through these feelings or ideally facilitating family sessions. I'm also very aware of the timing of this. Although you're in a great place right now, you are not far off a new addition to the family, and you might want to avoid any unwarranted distress and drama during at least the first few months. It's a magical time, but it's also very stressful. Congrats on your sobriety. That is a monumental achievement, and as the friend of an addict, it does my heart good to hear it getting done. You deserve the life you've created through hard work and sheer willpower. Proud of you. As someone who loves an addict, it's hard. It's not fair, but we've been lied to so many times and been hurt so often that we're afraid of opening that door. Truth is, my friend would have been better off without me, as I think my continued support no matter what only served to deepen her issues. I made mistakes and put myself into harm's way for her. I wished I hadn't. I've got angst and unresolved anger that she could never make up for. In some ways, I think her path would be easier if she just didn't have to, because I was simply not a part of her life. I'd be content if she was simply sober and living well. I don't know that this helps, but it's difficult for everyone, and we often just don't know what to say. And now, on to the update. I didn't show up for the dinner that I was invited to. I did accept my brother's friend request though, largely out of guilt over his nose. Although there's also the fact that I was fairly close to him when I was younger. Apparently I have a sister-in-law and a niece, and he seems to be doing well for himself. He deserves all he has. We'll be meeting in person over the weekend for the first time in ages. I asked him why he contacted me at all. He claims to have tried finding me on Facebook for about 3 years, and mentioned finding me to our family after he did so. This apparently made them all decide enough time had passed, so they followed his lead. I'm very glad that I've made up with my brother, but I'm not really interested in reconnecting with the rest of them. It's been too long, and at best we might be cordial strangers, which is worse than no contact. Any past love is gone and can't be brought back, so I'm not going to even try. My significant other and my brother have tried to convince me otherwise, but my mind is set up at this point. In the comments, having had addicts in my family that I didn't disown, but other people in my family did, this is a tough one to see who is right. You each have your own decisions to make for yourself, and you're making the one you feel most comfortable with, and nobody can knock that. However, you said you were an addict for 6 years. I'd be willing to bet my next month's paychecks that the things you listed in your original are only a small amount of the ways you made your family's life a living hell as an addict. It is extremely difficult dealing with someone whose only motivation is self-fulfillment with no regard for their own or anyone else's safety. I understand why my family no longer talks to someone else in my family who is an addict after he dragged his mum around by her hair, threatened the lives of his sister, and totaled 3 cars, stealing jewelry, destroying property, the list goes on. At this point in their lives, they will never forgive him. And if they did in 10 years, I'm not sure he'd make a different decision than you have. It's just really freaking sad what addiction does to people. Having had an addict in my life who was incredibly abusive, no amount of effort on her part at this point would reconcile us. Too much damage has been done. I will be no contact with her the rest of my life regardless of how well she does for herself when she gets out of prison. The first time someone I loved died of an overdose was probably the single most significant moment in my life. I've since watched so many others struggle with addiction, and some of them have done some truly deplorable crap at my expense. I get the anger and the hurt and the resentment. I get the frustration of watching them waste every chance at recovery that is offered to them. While I don't agree with it, I know why someone would be compelled to permanently end a relationship with an addict. What I can't comprehend is how you could tell that person, especially when it's your own child, that you no longer love them. When you end your relationship with a junkie, you do it with compassion and the hope that they will one day recognize and find a way to beat their illness. You tell them, I love you, but I can't tolerate what you've become or the things you've done, and you wish them the best of luck with the rest of their life. I can empathize with OP's parents' decision not to resume contact with him after he found recovery and tried to make amends, but telling him that the love they'd once had for him was not unconditional and that they no longer feel it is too cruel for words. I hope OP can one day come to forgive them for that, but I wouldn't blame him if he can't. The simplest answer is that you can only let someone hurt you so many times before whatever love you have for them disappears. I had to do this with a close friend. He got addicted to meth and was hospitalized. They also diagnosed him with schizophrenia, but he won't get treatment for either issue and thinks it's a conspiracy against him. Our group of friends tried for a long time to try and get him help, but he just wouldn't, so we just had to let go. It was tough. I've known him for almost 20 years, but we're all grown up and most of us have families of our own, and if they aren't willing to get help, you have to eventually just let go. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.